Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Harmony Insights lunch date. My name is Erich Kurschat. I am the owner of Harmony Insights LLC, a company that allows me to work with organizations and consultants using the DISC personality assessment, much of which is done online. I always say allows me. I mean, I'm allowing myself. So I'm allowing myself to work with companies and consultants using the DISC personality assessment. And you can find all of that at harmonyinsights.com. I'm also the founder of the HR Hot Seat Inclusive Mastermind community, as we say, a community of real HR pros solving real HR problems. Kind of unique to this mastermind style format of conversation. Actually, the Chicago chapter event, a virtual event, is this very evening. You can find out more about that at hrhotseat.com. Entirely virtual and entirely free these days. So I'd love to see you there. This is a Harmony Insights lunch date. You registered for it. You knew what you were getting into. In April, I decided that I wanted to remain surrounded by folks who inspire me to do my best work. And so I started having these one-off conversations and inviting others to be a part of them. And you said loud and clear that these conversations were inspiring to you as well. So we sort of opened up the doors and encouraged anybody who wanted to join us to do so. I choose my guests and my guests choose our topics. And today's guest, Courtney Templin, has made that short list of folks who inspire me and with whom I've been very eager to have today's conversation on the topic of HR community. So Courtney, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to today's Harmony Insights lunch date.
Thank you, Eric. It's wonderful to be here. It's so good to see all of you. I see some familiar faces. This is great.
Courtney, as I said, I am thrilled to have you here. You are the president of JB Training Solutions, the president of Chicago SHRM currently, the board of directors. And you and I have connected in various ways. I have been and continue to be an active Chicago SHRM member myself and have several friends with the JB Training Solutions organization. You have chosen for our conversation the topic of a title that we have used that is the power of HR community, never stop learning and connecting. By way of further introduction, can you give us a sense of what about this topic you're passionate about, why you chose it for today's conversation?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Eric. And, I think us being here today is a solution to that very idea. And when I think of how powerful education and networking and connection has been in my life and in my career, that is what absolutely stands out. And pre-COVID, I remember so often I would see HR colleagues and I would say, let's grab lunch, like let's catch up. And so I think this lunch date is helping fill that void. And what you all hopefully gain today is hopefully a few ideas and just the connection of sharing with other HR people and having that fuel. I think that is what just inspires me every day.
One of the things right off the bat I love about what you said is coincidentally, so many of our lunch date conversations have come back to meaningful connection and community, two things that are very important to me and important to others. And it's interesting how many different forms connection can take. And so almost every topic we've had comes back in some way to connection and community. I like how you have added to those things learning. And you even put it in the title. We decided to use it, never stop learning and connecting. So I want to make sure as we go today that we do talk about that education piece. What is it not only about connecting with other folks, but learning with them and from them. I will say for those who are new to lunch dates today that we often have a mix of HR professionals. So our topics are often around the HR community, but we have folks in job transition. We have leaders at all levels of the company. We have people who have never spent a day doing HR. And so much of our conversation today, although it will revolve around the HR discipline, we'll incorporate tips and strategies and recommendations we have for just getting involved in learning regardless of your background. So Courtney, do you want to give us just a sense of what you are doing both with JB Training and Chicago SHRM these days?
Yes. So just by way of intro, I'd love to share a little bit about two organizations that I'm so very passionate about. And that first is JB Training Solutions. And JB Training is, we're a learning and development company, and we're working with employees throughout their entire life cycle. So that starts as they join as an intern or new hire all the way to senior executives. And we are providing that learning and that training. So management, leadership topics, communication skills. We've been doing a lot this summer around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I joined JV Training Solutions over 15 years ago as the first employee. And we have had so many twists and turns in our business journey, and this year would be no exception. So before March, we did almost 90% of our training in person. So we really had to pivot and take all of that virtual. So there has never been a dull moment over those 15 years. And we are a small business, and I head up all the HR for our business. So that's with JB Training Solutions, and my passion is absolutely learning and development, and the never stop learning really hits home for me. And then the second organization is Chicago SHRM. So I'm currently president with Chicago SHRM. I've been a volunteer for over 10 years. Thank you, Randall. And when I think about, again, connection and learning, to me, that's Chicago SHRM's tagline. I have gained so much through my Chicago SHRM network. And since I don't have a formal background in HR, the education really helps me with my JB Training Solutions work. So outside of those two organizations, I love outdoor adventure. I love travel. My husband and I have two girls. They love hiking and biking. And then just this past year, I put together a bucket list of 100 things to do. And so that's always keeps me inspired doing something like that. So that's just a little bit about me.
So you are a very driven person. That bucket list, I always admire people who say, this is a list of things I need to do, and I'm going to set about doing them. I feel like I have this list that I'm always adding things to. I'm never crossing anything off of it. I'm always adding stuff to it.
You have the 1,000 bucket list?
It may say something about each of our disc styles, but we won't go into that right now. Two things I want to say right off the bat. Is two things in relation to what you just mentioned. Number one, JB Training Solutions. I have some very close friends who are trainers for JB Training. I think even more importantly to that, I attended and spoke at the SHRM 19 in Las Vegas and attended a number of presentations. The two that I attended from JB Training were two by far of the most memorable of that entire conference. And they're bringing together hundreds of speakers and talking on so many different topics. And I tried to get in to see Brad Karsh and had to be in sort of an overflow space. He had so many people. And there was another one too. So I want to put that out there just to say that what you do and how you do it through JB Training is fantastic. Number two, Chicago SHRM. I owe a great debt to. When I moved to Chicago and got involved with HR many years ago, decided to go off in my own direction with Harmony Insights. I knew I needed to start networking, had no idea where to begin. And I thought, hey, I'll go with the largest of the local 8 or 9 SHRM chapters. Became very involved as on various committees and in other ways, presenting, etc. And the community that I then built and the networking that I learned to do through Chicago SHRM has been invaluable to me and continues to be so very special. So we didn't plan that, but I wanted to say those two things to reinforce the value of what you were bringing to the conversation today.
I appreciate that, Eric. And to our trainers, so I'm not a trainer, and whenever I see our people presenting, I'm wowed, right, of how they're able to bring that learning to life. And then your experience with Chicago SHRM very much mirrors mine. And JB Training Solutions celebrated 18 years just this month. And I was looking back at some of our old strategic documents, and it was about 10 years ago where the goal was for myself to get involved in the HR community. And it was just so wonderful to look at that goal 10 years ago and now just see all the wonderful things that have come from that.
Yes, agreed. If we look in the chat, we see we have people chiming in from Naperville. I see Helsinki, Finland in the house. Hannah has joined us.
All
She's a
right.
regular at our lunch dates. Suburban Chicago. We have a number of people from around the Chicago area and other places joining us today. I want to put out a quick poll. I'll launch a quick poll, and then you and I will continue with our conversation as people are responding to it. And I ask 3 questions, more than I typically would. The first one is, are you as active in the professional communities available to you as you would like to be? So it doesn't have to be HR necessarily, but whatever your profession, are you as active as you would like to be? Number 2, you should see, if you are not as active as you would like to be, what do you see as your primary obstacles? And you see a few that I've put there: time, money, energy, perceived benefit. And then third, if you are active in professional communities available to you, what do you see as your primary motivations? And you can choose multiple motivations. I have a few in there: belonging, volunteering, networking, and you can see all of the options. Courtney, as people are responding to this, I would imagine there aren't too many folks who wouldn't see the value in learning and networking, and being active in their professional communities that are available to them. What do you see as some of the very specific challenges that stand in the way of us doing these things that we know are particularly valuable in terms of learning and connecting?
Yeah, it's great, Eric. And one of the options I saw there that stands out to me is that time. And I can share with you, I'm so passionate about this topic, and I know the great benefits of it. And I too fall into that trap of, if I can unbury myself from my email or get through with that project, if I can make that time, then I will attend the workshop. Or then, once I do those things, then I will have the time to go to that networking event. So it's that time constraint, I think, is the challenge. I know everyone is saying, like, especially now, but if you think about what is on HR's plate and, trying to solve for the here and now plus be strategic, that is a real challenge. Maybe there's lots of home challenges as well, putting that pressure on our time. I also think the networking, connecting piece is sometimes scary, or people feel it might be awkward, or it puts people outside of their comfort zone. So I do have a couple things of just how I reframe it in my mind. And I always joke that the majority of my life I spend trying to outsmart myself to do the things that I know that I like, and to get myself to do those things. So I like to just flip the conversation a little bit. So instead of like, if I have time, then I can do this. And my analogy is around working out. So I always say, I don't have the time to work out. But my flip is, I have the time to work out. I have the time to strengthen my body and clear my mind so that I can tackle the day, and it's really putting that benefit right then and there. So I have the time to attend this workshop because it will give me the time to work strategically on HR. And the other thing is around energy. So I see that as a piece of, a lot of times at the end of the day, I was like, it's a really long day. I don't know if I have the energy to go to this HR happy hour or networking. And again, that's a bit of a reframe for me, because I know that whenever I attend these things and I see the smiling faces after being, on my own or isolated a bit during the day, that I do gain that energy and that inspiration. And so again, it's a bit of reframe of this HR networking event will give me the energy that I need, or give me the inspiration that I need. And then I'll also say my last final point here is, one of the things that has saved me the most time in my career is having an amazing network. So whenever I do have this new HR or business challenge, instead of spinning my wheels, I have 3 people that I can call for advice, or someone who can give me a quick referral, and I'm able to save a ton of time. So a couple challenges and some hacks.
So many things to talk about here. I wish we had the entire afternoon. I want to start with the time piece that you mentioned. I have put out on social media recently that I'm personally struggling distinguishing the urgent from the important. Stephen Covey talked a lot about those two things. I would say that at any given time, networking organizations might be feeding one or both of those things. Urgent in the sense that, okay, we're dealing with work from home policy and COVID, and I need this information now, right? And then so what better than a professional community to get you access to those things? But it can also then be, in terms of obstacles, be put on the back burner because sometimes it is that thing that is important, but not seen as urgent. Urgent is all the stuff that my supervisor is having me do. Urgent is the stuff that I have to finish by the end of the day so I don't get fired. Important is the investment in myself and in my profession, my career over the long term, the things that professional communities really allow us to do and support. Would you agree with that distinction between urgent and important?
Absolutely, and I talk about that all the time. I talk about that with our team as well, because it is, you can get buried in those day-to-day things, and you're right, they're urgent, they have to get done, but how are we continuing to lift our heads up a little bit to make sure that those important things and potentially more strategic things that we have time for those as well.
So I'm gonna end the poll because sometimes I forget to do this and it's the last like 30 seconds and then I finally share the results. But let's do that now really quickly. So we're seeing that the majority of people say that they are as active as they would like to be, which could mean not at all, right? It just means you're as active as you would like to be. But 35% are saying I'm not as active, and 20% further are saying it's complicated. I'm intrigued by those numbers. Continuing on, if you're not as active as you would like to be, what do you see as the primary obstacles? Time is showing up as by far the highest percentage at 60%. Then far beyond below that, you see money and a few other things, but time is the largest perceived obstacle. And then if you are active, what is your motivation? The largest percentage is saying networking, followed by learning. Not terribly surprising. Certification isn't coming in very high at all, which is a little surprising to me, especially in the HR space. Then we have belonging, volunteering, and then other. Does anything here stand out to you, Courtney, surprise you, or fall in line with what you would expect?
Yeah, absolutely. The time piece, and we see that a lot, even with our business and JV training solutions of being a learning in development company, and we used to have full day workshops, and now our workshops are sometimes 90 minutes. And what we continue to say of when you are learning and growing, you're gaining these skills to be a higher performer, et cetera. So that the time doesn't surprise me. I love to see the networking. I had a tough time. I'm like, is it networking or learning? I learned so much from my network, but it's good to see those two highlighted.
So what would you say to someone like Angelica, who is joining us in the chat area, that says, as someone transitioning into HR, it can feel a lot like this high contact learning is geared toward higher level HR professionals. I've heard that from others as well who are, I don't want to put words in their mouths and say intimidating, but you even talked a little bit earlier about how networking can be intimidating. What would you say to the folks that say, well, I'm actually kind of green in the HR space or in whatever my discipline and profession happens to be? I'm not sure if I'm either welcome or appreciated or that I have something to contribute, which is what most people say. I'm not sure that I have something to contribute at the level that I'm at. What would you say to those folks?
Yeah, well, I would say let's go ahead and jump in. Like I love whenever we do have diversity of experience levels in conversations. That was a really intentional focus of Chicago SHRM a few years ago, in that we realized when looking around the room, where are our emerging HR leaders? And we can learn so much from them. And the organization, one, can provide so much when you're getting started to help elevate you and upskill you quickly. But two, what can you share with us and learn from you? And I know that Chicago SHRM specifically learns a ton of insights from emerging leaders, and how we can continue to improve. So I see it as, jump in, learn, and be a sponge, and know that you too bring a really valuable perspective.
You use the word diversity, and I would just want to highlight that for a moment, because I think sometimes we can get really focused on one or another aspect of diversity and how we define it. But that cognitive diversity, the diversity of thought and perspective and approach and communication style, and coming together with people who are new to the profession. We've seen this in HR Hot Seat as well. Help the people who have been around for a while and are kind of stuck in their ways to see things differently and to understand that things are being done differently now. I may be hell-bent on bringing folks together face to face because that's my comfort zone. But if COVID isn't allowing us, what are those platforms out there? What are those formats of conversation? How can we think differently about how we're bringing folks together and engaging in community and conversation that may never have crossed my mind? Folks who are newer to the profession might bring that perspective. And so they not only have so much to give and to contribute, but then the value of them learning from others who have been in their shoes and have, I'll just say this briefly. My wife and I went to Yellowstone recently, at least a month ago now. So not as recently as we could have gone, but we're walking down this path in bear country. I have a can of bear spray on my belt. Not too many people out there. You bet the folks that are coming back toward us who have already been where we wanted to go, I asked, are there any bears that we should anticipate? Like, what's going to happen over the course of the next few hundred yards that I might be interested in knowing? And that really stuck with me. I could have just gone at it and said, waved and gone along. But by me then asking for their perspective, and then maybe they had something to value or to learn from us, we were able to have a dialogue that benefited both sides. I don't want to belabor this point, but I hear it enough that I want to come back to Angelica and other people and say, if you are new to the profession, you are just as valuable in a networking scenario and in the community as anybody else might be. I'm going to pause there. Courtney, you just run with it if you like.
Absolutely. And well, Erich, your story, I don't know if you ended up seeing any bears, but it brought up a resource that I do think is very helpful. Last year I read a book, and it's called All You Have to Do Is Ask. And it says that the ask is actually one of the easiest things that you can do to be a more successful person. And it talks about why it is really hard to ask for help or to seek that out, but how powerful it is and how overwhelmingly people really do want to help. So just brought up that story.
Thank you for that. And we will follow up via email with any resources that have been mentioned or haven't even been mentioned that Courtney would find helpful to pass along. So Courtney, if you can believe it, we only have a few minutes left, and I want to make sure people know how to get in touch with you, et cetera. Could you leave us with one or two of your very top tips on, regardless of the profession, regardless of the community, how people can transition from being maybe hesitant or uncertain about the value of coming together in professional community and learning from their peers to embracing it wholeheartedly and jumping headfirst into the value of professional community?
Absolutely. And I can share a few quick tips. One, you're all here today, so you did that. Like, could the next step be that you set up a virtual coffee and you connect with someone right here? So I think that could be a really specific next action. Find your community and get involved. So to me, when I went from a member of Chicago SHRM to a volunteer for Chicago SHRM, that's when like those connections really started to happen. For me, it's about setting a goal and making it part of your routine and being intentional about it. So like a hack of mine is the never stop learning. That's actually a next action for myself. So like every 2 weeks, that will pop up on my calendar. And so never stop learning. So I'll look at the HR calendar and sign up for an event. So it's always top of mind. And then two, another thing, seeing people in person was always my flag to connect. And so since there's not, I've just been more intentional about that. And so another little hack of HR colleagues that I love connecting with, we've just set reoccurring meetings. So some are quarterly, some are monthly, and they might just be 15 or 30-minute chats. But again, it's just an easy way that it becomes part of your routine, that you're making those connections.
Excellent. Thank you for those. That's all very helpful. I want to end by saying, and I certainly don't want to put words in your mouth, but if anybody on this call is, you know, you feel that you haven't figured things out and you don't want to enter a room and enter an organization where everything is already figured out, know that nobody has figured it out, especially with what we're going through now. And Courtney, you can let me know if this is the case for you on the JB training side or on the Chicago SHRM side. But when COVID hit and everything sort of shut down in March and April, I personally was figuring out, how do I even do this anymore? Not only me as an individual, but how do I serve my audience? And I used to be able to do these things, and now I have to do these. And as I've gotten emails from other HR organizations, I feel like everybody is in that same scenario. How do I, as an individual, or how do we as an organization do what we're used to doing in a different, potentially more effective way? So we're all in the same bucket. We're coming at it from different approaches and different perspectives. But when you think that you're the only one fill in the blank, I promise you're not.
Yes, absolutely, right? Whenever you're feeling isolated, or doing things like this, right? And someone's right there with you, has a similar challenge, and it is good to just connect, share, and not stop learning.
Yeah, wonderful. Courtney, people are going to want to follow up with you after this. They're going to want to learn about JB Training Solutions offerings that you have, maybe ways to get involved with Chicago SHRM. What is the best place for people to find you online?
Yes, why don't you all can connect with me on LinkedIn? So it's Courtney Templin, and that would be great. I'd love to do virtual coffees or chat more.
Excellent. If you've all been as inspired by this conversation as I have been, I hope you will go back to, let me go to my fancy thing here, harmonyinsights.com/lunch dates. We have a few more coming up. Thursday of next week, Katie Lopez is going to talk about the HR anthropologist and how our efforts in diversity and inclusion can be informed by the practice of anthropology, which I love, the science of anthropology. Thursday, October 29th, Desmond Clark, who's a former Chicago Bears tight end and a current entrepreneur, among other things, is going to talk about the principles of winning. Jay Brown, a Chicago SHRM member I know, is going to speak to us on November 5th about parenting in a pandemic, which I'm really excited about. Jay is with Hub International. And then a good friend of mine, Kim LeClaire, is going to tie things up on November 12th. In a talk that we've titled Turning Toward Each Other, the Silver Lining of a Pandemic, how the past several months have encouraged us to face each other and connect in ways that we hadn't previously. There's that connection theme again. You can find all of that at harmonyinsights.com/lunch dates. Sharing that URL on LinkedIn especially really helps spread the word about what we do. So if I had any ask for you today, beyond checking out the resources that Courtney will make available in an email to follow, sharing harmonyinsights.com/lunch dates really helps us get out the word about these discussions. At this point, people are going to be free to go about their afternoon if they want, stick around. But before we even get that far, Courtney, I just want to thank you once again. I've really been looking forward to this conversation. It could have gone on much longer, but I really appreciate you'd be willing to spend this time with us today.
Thank you, Eric. This was wonderful.